Hey, welcome to the Let's Talk About It podcast. I'm your host, Larry Parker, and I have my wife, Courtney Parker. And today we have a real special guest, someone very close to us, Sydney Smith, coming to share her story with Christ and with you. So let's get into it. Let's get down to it. Let's talk about it. All right, so we'll get right into it. Sid, so tell us about yourself.
I'm 19 and I work at Chemung Valley Early Learning Center, and I'm an aide for the staff.
All right, so what kind of work? Who do you work with there? What do you do there?
I work with children 6, 7 years old. Try to teach them manners, have fun with them, some summer activities, swimming, play games outside, arts and
Ah,
crafts, etc.
all right, that's fun, right? You
Yeah,
like it?
yeah, I do.
You enjoy it?
Yes, I do.
All right, good, good. We like to ask. All right, so we like to ask because everybody, you can tell who a person is by what kind of movies they like.
Okay.
So we ask everybody this question. So, what are your three favorite movies?
All right, I'm gonna go super bad.
Oh wow, super bad. All right, okay,
I mean, it's hard to pick a top three. I
all
really
right.
like The Sitter and Moonrise Kingdom. Moonrise Kingdom. It's a good one.
Oh, I've never seen Moonrise Kingdom, but Superbad and The Sitter is related. What's Moonrise Kingdom? Tell us. Give us a plug. Let's give him a plug.
It's about this boy. He's a Boy Scout, and this girl named Susie, and they run away together and they fall in love, but they're probably around 12 years old, and they run away to this island that they call Moonrise Kingdom. It's more of an indie flick.
Okay, I got you. All right. Have you ever seen The Beach?
No,
You never seen The Beach?
no.
That's an old movie.
Yeah, but it's kind
I
of the
watch a
same
lot of
concept.
movies, but
Yeah, so you got to check out The Beach. I
Leonardo
think you would like it.
DiCaprio, right? Isn't he
Yeah,
in it?
yeah. Leonardo DiCaprio, pretty much they run away to this island and start their own, like these teenagers run away to this island and start their own civilization.
yeah, practically. And then they get caught, and it's a whole scene that they're in love, so they don't want to leave one another.
Okay.
They're
All
just
right.
on a run type of deal.
All right, so you like that movie?
Yeah, it's
That's
good.
what you would watch. That's a rewatchable. You would watch
Yeah,
that
I just
again.
saw Midsummer, and that was really good too
Okay,
in
so
theaters.
so that one might come up. That one might rise up the ranks.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. All right. All right. So let me ask you this: what's your current living situation?
I live with my parents.
Okay, and a couple dogs and a sister.
I do. I have 3 dogs, a Great Dane, 2 smaller dogs, and I live with my younger sister and my younger brother.
Okay. All right. All right. And you're going to college, right? Or you just
I
finished
just
college?
graduated Corning Community College. I plan to transfer within the spring semester.
All right. What's the plan? What's the big plan?
I want to be a teacher,
Oh, really?
elementary ed.
Okay. So where are you gonna go?
I'm looking at Buff State, Portland, and possibly St. John Fisher.
Oh yeah, that's good. Them are good schools. Buff State's a really good education program from what I hear. But yeah, St. John Fisher's really good too.
I heard Portland is really good for education as well.
Yeah. All right, good. All right. So what do you want to do? You want to teach elementary? What grade? What's your favorite grade?
Ideally kindergarten,
Yeah, is that
like
okay?
K through 2. Nothing probably above that, maybe third grade. But anything above like fifth grade is a no.
Is it no?
No.
Why?
Then they get opinionized and they think, they know everything
Yeah, they
and
get
it's their
grown.
way and they have something to say about everything. So they get out of pocket.
All right, and then you got it. All right, so you like them when they're innocent. I'm with you. I'm with you. I
Yeah.
worked in the school district,
I'll say I could teach them things like mannerisms and basic life skills.
right? And they still like look up to you, right? They don't challenge you in second grade, right? They're like,
Yeah.
teachers are great. I love everybody, right? So that's what we got to keep it. Okay. All right. So now we're gonna get deep. Okay, you with that?
Okay.
You with that? So what was your first introduction to Jesus? You came to Christ, right? So what was your first introduction to Jesus? Like point blank, like first family started going to church, stuff like that.
When we first moved here, I used to go to church when I was younger in Buffalo, to my TTNS church. That was a Hispanic church.
Oh,
I remember going to like children's church during service, but the service was too long for me to really carry on and actually like, catch everything
right,
that was going on.
right.
So
So how
How
old
old
were
were
you?
you?
I moved here when I was 5, 2005, almost 6. I only started going around when I was 7. Um, but then we switched to Fusion when I was 14.
Okay. So what'd you think? So going back to that, what'd you think? Like, cause so were your parents into in the church? Like, like, was there any difference in their involvement in the church?
I
Was
mean,
there?
it was about the same. I mean, they attended church. They did some fellowship. We got to know like the church family some, but it wasn't. It was more of a facade. It felt like more of a facade.
Okay.
Like this is how church should be. That church culture, church talk.
Okay.
It
All
wasn't
right.
very open. I feel like my parents didn't really fit in necessarily like enough. A lot of things that they thought like the people were for them, they weren't for them. Like it wasn't really.
Okay.
It was like a fake environment.
So when did you realize that? Did you realize that at 6, or was it later that now you look back?
I mean, after I always thought it was kind of odd how long service was. I remember falling asleep in service sometimes, but also at the same time, they were all about money. They would ask for offerings. Like as I got older, they started like I was in probably like ninth grade before we made the switch
Yeah.
to Fusion. I met her in eighth grade, but and like they would have like 3 offerings in the service.
Yeah.
They'd
I've
be
been
like
to those
those
churches.
commercial churches, and they're like, I'm gonna put $1,000 down right now. Who's with me? And I was
Yeah.
like, if you're doing your tithing or giving an offering, why are you asking that much? Everything
Right.
just seems so commercial. That's what the word I was looking for is commercial. It's
Okay.
really commercial. I don't like that.
And that's one, and that's one thing that everybody should know is that God doesn't need our money, right? God doesn't require that, and it's usually people that end up distorting some of God's work with leaving that impression of
Yeah.
making it about money, because God's not really about money; He's about our heart. And sometimes our heart is tied to the money. So that's good that you picked up on that. So you recognize the difference now.
100%. I don't think. I'm not saying that they're not people of the Lord, but I don't think, like you said, their intentions or their intent is as pure as it should be. I think it is mostly about money. I mean, you see them drive brand new Mercedes-Benz, Beamers, etc. But then you don't see them really investing their time into the people. Like they want you to be a member, but they really want you for your money. I feel like it's not really like oh, we're gonna be a family, we're gonna fellowship. I'm not gonna get to know you, or if I do get to know you, it's just for me to end up and turn around on you. I mean,
Right.
I remember my past should be marrying or dating a black woman.
Okay. All
Like
right.
that's just kind of odd to me. Like, who
So
are you to say? You know what I'm saying? Like
well,
that's
that's an interesting point because I grew up in an interracial household. You're in an
yeah,
interracial household, and sometimes even in the church, that's a struggle in the church because the
yeah.
church is early on was still a little bit segregated. You had your black churches, you had your white churches.
Yeah.
You know,
Baptist versus Catholic.
right? So you dealt with that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like that. But they seem so superficial when it came to talking in front of others.
So did that affect your view of what you thought Jesus was?
I
Because
mean, no, not necessarily. I didn't really think much of it. I mean, my mom always taught me to pray before I went to sleep when I was younger
yeah,
than Mia, probably like 5. Then now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep me safe through the night, persuade me with the morning light. Amen. Like I still say that before I go to bed, before I actually pray. But that was I never had a problem believing that there was a God or Jesus. I never had a problem believing that. I mean, I didn't really start questioning things until I started to push the envelope and go according to my own things. I never had any doubts toward it. Um, I just questioned things that were actually written in scripture, things like that. But like just learning like, oh, you can't put levels of degrees on sin
right, right.
or like just certain things that like I experienced that you're not supposed to do or like why you're not supposed to do them. Like things that like are actually like according to his word.
Yeah.
Not to just like how people want to live.
So you mentioned something. You said you really didn't start to doubt until you started to push the envelope. Do you want to share? Do you feel comfortable sharing any of that? Like, what do you like? Because there could be somebody out there right now that's pushing the envelope or that's questioning. And what were you thinking during that time? What was going on?
I mean, personally, for me, with my childhood and like how I grew up. I mean, my parents were always super involved, but I don't think they really had shed any light of what like my perception of things were,
Okay.
or like how I dealt with things, or like how things affected me to a certain extent. So I just feel like I just kind of took it into my own hands. So at a young age, I started doing things that like I never would have seen myself doing. Like, I started smoking and drinking at 14. And I
Okay.
mean, I'm not saying I'm not judging or any of those things, but I'm saying, like, at the same time, like, for me, it was, I'd dealt with depression, like, been exposed to depression at a very
Right.
young age. I was in 5th grade.
Right.
So, I mean, for me, I always question a lot of things, had a lot of body image issues, etc.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like, I'm just going to interpret everything up to me. I mean, I didn't really ask twice. I didn't really open up to my parents and communicate anything with them until, like, I really had to. And even then, I wasn't really open to expressing anything.
Right. Right. Do you think things would have been better if you did?
I mean, at that time and place, I don't believe so. Because at that time and place, even when I did express things, I don't think we were all where we needed to be.
Okay.
I mean, my parents are fairly new to being saved. I mean, it's been a few years necessarily. After they got married, a lot of things changed. But at the same time, after they got married, I don't think they, like, fully grew in their purpose or knew. I mean, I'm not saying anyone knows how to perfectly parent. You can't be a perfect parent.
Right. Right.
But I'm saying I
Right.
think what I was throwing at them, they weren't prepared for, and I didn't know how to deal with all the things that I was going through at the same time. So I think it made it hard on both ends. I mean, for me, I wasn't looking at my perspective of how could they do this and how could they do that. But they probably were thinking the same thing for me. I mean, I'm basically their first child. So
Yeah.
like, that's new exposure to everything, and they probably didn't know that I was going to have things I was going through because I never expressed it.
Right.
So I don't think it would have made much of a difference because I think reactions on both ends weren't the best.
Yeah.
I mean, now I think it's a lot different. I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
With them. So,
Yeah. So you're more open with them,
yeah, 100%.
talking to them about. Okay. All
What
right.
changed?
Honestly, I think God should change it all. I mean, I didn't really know my purpose or what I was here for or what I was really doing. I was just kind of freelancing. But I think for my parents as well, they've grown to, like, love me besides my differences and with my struggles because they can't save me.
Right. Right. Only he can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. Drugs can't save you.
Yeah,
Right.
as much as we want those things to be the end all be all, they don't do
They
anything
don't.
of any positive. I mean, unless it's temporarily.
Okay. So your social life. That's what I really want to talk about was how was integrating Jesus into your social life. So that's part of that difficulty, right?
Yeah.
So what was your process into where it was during that time when you were going through all those things and really challenging um, to now?
I mean, after all the challenging, even though I thought I was doing better, I guess it was more of like a facade to myself.
Okay.
Obviously, I used to smoke a lot every day, more than once a day.
Yeah.
Multiple usage. I feel like even then though, like, just growing from that, it's been hard because I realize a lot of my friends aren't my friends. And if you want to get to where you're going, then all your friends can't be your friends. I mean, I keep my circle very tight. I mean, I have my boyfriend, my best friend Grace, uh, and a few, probably a good other 2 friends that I really rely on for anything else. But besides that, I gotta keep my circle small. I mean, as long as we're both encouraging each other to grow and do well, then obviously I'm gonna keep them around. But I realize a lot of people were just in it for the benefit of themselves, or they didn't really want to grow. It's just like a lack of motivation, and I don't respect that whatsoever.
Well, yeah, and it's hard. We have to go through these cycles, and I realized this with myself that, I had a lot of friends at 17, like a lot of friends. And now I have about, I can probably count them on my hands, but those friends that I do have on one hand, right, have more impact in my life than all those 25 friends that, you know what I mean?
100%.
And that's what it's about, really. So you realize that impact is more important, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say was the biggest moment of your change, of your transformation?
I mean, I definitely had a lot of impacts. I mean, after going through EDM, and
What
actually,
tell us what EDM is?
my minor discipleship ministries. At first, I didn't really think it was for me. I was kind of slacking. I didn't really care to get involved into it. I was just kind of doing it, running through the motions because my mom thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
But the second semester, after switching groups, um, not anything towards Trey and Mickey, they also were great. Uh, but I think I, like, figured out that it was probably something I should be pushing for.
Yeah.
Something that probably actually helped me that I needed at the time. I mean, so after that, and then working with me and being as open and like all the different age groups saying like their struggles, not mattering what age groups you are, you come to Jesus, I guess you should say, or just like growing that relationship that you have. It made a huge difference, and then I was able to like actually get sober and see myself involving myself in more things with my family. Like I was missing on so much family time. I would never see them. I would never be home. I never wanted to be home. Just like going back to, I guess you could say, the basics before anything ever really happened.
That's good.
So I mean, I gave my testimony in front of everybody on Wednesday Coffee House, and I feel like that just really set it off. I mean, I'm not gonna say there hasn't been any backsliding or any slip ups or anything like that, but it's not as major. Like I know that I'm still on track, that I wouldn't ever want to go back to where I was headed.
Yeah, and sometimes, and I think that's where you're at. Sometimes we just got to realize that we still have work to do, and once we think we don't have work to do, that's when we're really like we all make mistakes, right? We all struggle. The temptation is going to be there, but Scripture says that God will always leave an opportunity to get out of that temptation, right? But to know that I still got work to do, and not thinking, yeah, I'm good, right? When I think I'm good, that's when I get smacked.
I'll say.
Right?
When you're stagnant, that's when the most.
That's right. That's right. So that's good, and what you're talking about is so you realigned yourself. You started with the Elmira Discipleship Ministries. Second semester started. You had some new professors. Nothing wrong with the first ones. It's just a new alignment, right? A new position, and God could work with everything. You know what I mean? And
so, speaking of staying stagnant, how do you prevent yourself from staying stagnant? Like, what does your devotion life look like? Like, what do you do to constantly be growing?
Major thing for me again is who I surround myself with. Johnny is a huge help. We both keep each other in line as much as we can. I mean, praise and worship is huge for me. That's when I feel the most encounter presence. I mean, sometimes I've seen like difference in my music taste when I didn't really think I'd ever make that difference.
That's good.
I mean, I still listen to all genres of music, but I mean, mostly now I don't listen to as much as I used to. I mean, I listen to a lot more praise and worship. When I go to bed, I listen to praise and worship. I mean, I try to get that time. I mean, Trey encouraged me to do at least 20 minutes a day. So if I have 20 minutes a day, whether it's 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 10 minutes here, I'm trying the best to get that. I mean, whether it's at the end of my day or not, I think it's key for me to remind myself because the day can get ahead of me, and I'm just going through the motions trying to get through the day. So.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think the music thing's big, and most people don't. But that's what I struggled with when we came to the faith. Courtney immediately switched her music, but I didn't, and she was praying for me that I would, I would, But music was a big part of who I thought I was, right? Because music has the ability to grab your identity. We start to identify with our musicians, like this is me, this is us, right? I'm Rockefeller, I'm G Unit, I'm trying to. I don't know if you guys know who they are, but right? All right, my fault. But we identify with our music, right? This is us. They get me, right? But Jesus wants us to identify with Him first. But that's what I struggled with that a lot, and I held on to that a lot. You know what I mean? So
I told on him a lot.
To the pastor?
No.
To God?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was.
What's the pastor gonna do?
Eat your hair, pastor. He'll come at you. He'll get at you. All right, so that's good. I mean, but that's good that you notice the little things, right?
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Do you think it's like, what do you appreciate now? I mean, what do you got going on? Where's the glory today? Like, what do you appreciate right now?
I mean, I'm blessed with a full-time job. That's something really huge for me.
Yeah.
A lot of family time is key. Just hanging out with the people, being around the people that I know I should be surrounding myself with. That's huge. I mean, one-on-one time, just good quality time with people. That's always been something that's been very important to me. I've been able to do a lot more of that, even with my schedule, which is nice. Still good to see the people that I want to see.
Yeah.
Now I feel like that I have the flexibility and freedom. I can do a lot more things. Like I'm not worried about the money in my bank account. I can go take trips. I go see things I never really got to see.
Yeah.
I mean, just do things I never was really able to do with all the other things that I was adding
going
into
through,
my,
right?
Yeah, well, going through, but like just adding into my bank account. I mean, I feel like I don't have it all together, but I'm in a track of having most of it together.
Well, listen. You're young, right? But that's the fact that you realize that you don't have it together. It's the first step of getting it together, right? Because if I'm 19, um, no 19-year-old has it together, right? In the world, even if they're millionaires, they still got some stuff to learn, and that's all right. That's good. That's good. So what? Let me ask you this. This is gonna be. This is your chance to pastor. You ready to be a pastor?
Is
Real
that a
quick.
rhetorical question?
Yeah, because I'm gonna ask you a question anyway. So you're right. Um, so what would you tell parents? What would you tell parents to 16-year-old you, right? Parents of 16-year-old you, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them, right? To improve, to help that situation get to this situation a lot faster.
I mean, I think mostly I was lacking a lot of support and love that I needed at the time. I didn't feel like I had their support or their actual ear. I didn't think they were actually there for me. I mean, I knew they were there for me, but in a sense, I feel like anything I wanted to talk to them about them or could have talked to them about, I had to keep to myself or between me and my closest friends
Okay.
or me and my significant other at the time because I just felt like it was me again. I was me against them. I couldn't really relate to them. They couldn't relate to me. They didn't see where I was coming from. They didn't try to. So I think that was the biggest thing. I just lacked a lot of love and support. Truly. I mean, I just wanted somebody to see my perspective and tell me that I wasn't beyond, like, beyond my limits or I wasn't beyond out of my mind for, like, going through the things I had to go through.
Right.
I mean, I think what they were trying to push for, I don't think that was the wrong thing. I know that they always want just what's best for me, but they could have approached it in many different ways.
Right.
I think would have been more effective for me, and I probably wouldn't have ran so long, or had to. We probably wouldn't, as a whole, had to go through as many things as we did.
Okay. Because a lot of parents out there right now are probably thinking that they are loving and supporting their child, but then
Yeah.
the reaction is the same as yours. So how does a parent know, like, what should they do to ensure they're doing the right things or supporting you in the right way or loving? Like, what's one thing that your parents could have did for you, or uh, anyone could have did for you to make it more specific? Spend time.
I mean, at that
Um,
time, I didn't really want to be around them. I mean, I'm
right.
not.
So
I'm not
what?
a parent, so I can't speak on too much because I don't have no experience from the other end. I mean, I think it was just mostly like the lashing out and then making me feel like as if I was somewhat almost unwanted. I think
Okay.
that was the biggest thing for me. It felt like I was out of place. Like I wasn't accepted. I was just like it was do what I say or it's the highway type of like
Okay. All
I
right.
didn't
All right.
yeah.
So that something like that doesn't improve your situation. That
No. I think it
makes you
just
run
makes
towards it.
yeah, it makes me resentful in a sense. Not anymore, but it
Right
made me
at the time,
resentful in a sense.
and it kind of snowballed into the rest of the.
Yeah.
So what would you give? What advice would you give to you, the 16-year-old you, from this perspective you have now? What advice would you give you, knowing what you know now, knowing that Johnny is just a couple years away?
um I don't I don't know, that's tough. I feel like
Let me ask you. The reason why I'm saying is because somebody is 16-year-old you right now, right?
yeah.
And they might listen. And so the idea is, what advice would you get them? Because right? You know better than I know. You know better than your parents know what's going to get you, right?
True.
So what would have got you at that time? Like, what would you say to your 16-year-old self if you were right in front of her and you knew, you know?
I think the biggest key is just love yourself. I mean,
Okay,
I
good.
didn't have
Yeah,
any
yeah,
self love at the time. I didn't
yeah.
have any perspective on a lot of things at the time. I didn't love myself, and I feel like that was probably the biggest struggle. That's probably one of the biggest issues. Because that made me fall to a lot of things that I probably did not have to fall to.
So how did you learn to love yourself?
I mean, it's still a work in progress, 100%. But I mean, finding my purpose and knowing who I am.
That's good. I think people
things
overlook
like that.
purpose.
Yeah, I think
Purpose is important.
I think that's what a lot of the problem is, just with general society. People everywhere, at all different ages, they don't know what their purpose is. So if you lack purpose, then it's harder to find any reason to do what you do. It's just, again, running through the motions or not running through the motions, and you wonder every day, why is my life like this, etc. I mean, I've been there, obviously. I still have days that are tough like that, but I know that I do have a purpose. So knowing I have purpose gives me
It brings you back.
Yeah, it brings me hope that I can love myself because I have a purpose to fulfill here. I mean, I'm not just here to be here.
Right, right. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, so do you have any more questions? I think we pretty much covered it. That was good. That was good.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was good. So let me ask you this. One last question. All right. How do you use Jesus now? Right. So how do you use Jesus now that's different than you did before? Because I see Jesus moving in your life, right? I see a different peace over you, right? So what's the difference? Like, how do you use him any differently?
I think I was just using him as a beck and call. Then.
You used to, okay.
Yes, I think.
Pray when you needed something.
Pray when I needed to, and it's never that I didn't know necessarily who Jesus was. It's just I didn't really know that what Jesus had in store for me, and on top of that, I think I was just given pieces, just like little pieces of my heart. Like I wasn't given the entire thing, and if I'm not given the entire thing, then I can't expect the full return.
Right.
So I think that's like the biggest thing for me. I just feel like if I'm not giving all my heart, or almost it's everything. If I'm not giving my 100%, then I'm not gonna get 100% return. You reap what you sow. So, I mean, I wasn't really reaping all of my harvest. I couldn't expect an entire garden when I'm only putting down 4 seeds.
Right.
So,
that's good.
I think that's the biggest thing.
All right, good. So you invested. So now you invest your whole heart, right? You let him have access to the entire thing.
Yeah, I don't think I can't be lukewarm.
Right.
So.
All right. Good. All right. You did it. You did the podcast. So we all clap. That's the routine. All right. Bam.